if there's any questions. You can put the questions through the app on the Web Summit app if you want, or at the end I can ask for questions and answers time if you'd like. Okay, so I'd really like to, I'm here on behalf of Furthr, by the way, and I'll have a little chat at the end about Furthr. So we're about helping our founders scale, connect, accelerate, and we have some companies here who are happy to talk to us about their journey. So I'm delighted to be joined by my panel, Catriona, Chris, and Kerrill. So the topic is on, the art of innovation and building sustainable competitive advantage in an international startup market. But I'd really like to start off actually asking Chris from Bluedrop how his company has achieved competitive advantage in the first place. And I guess it is easy when you're coming in with a disruptive technology in, the medtech, but we'll talk about how you sustain that. But let's just talk about what your competitive advantage and a bit about Bluedrop. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, cool. So at Bluedrop, we've developed a device for people who are at high risk of developing foot ulcers. So it's a problem that a lot of people with diabetes experience, where they get these sores in their feet. Those sores go unnoticed and ultimately lead to ulcers, and then can lead to amputations in many cases. So we've developed a device that's used in the patient's home. The patient stands on it once a day for 30 seconds. We record thermal and visual data from the soles of the feet, send it to the cloud, analyze it, and look for signs that indicate that an ulcer is forming. So that's kind of basically the product. But the competitive advantage is really the addition of one, making it extremely easy for the patient to use, and making it easy for the health system, but also kind of technological advantage. So what we've done is built this technology off of a strong foundation in existing research. There's actually already a lot of research out there on temperature monitoring using a handheld device, and we've basically just taken that and looked at how can we make this as easy to use as possible for patients, translated into a product that takes the form of a weighing scale. It's really simple to use. So I'd say our competitive advantage comes from a couple of different areas, one being usability from the patient and the provider, and then also this technological advancement as well.
And just on that, with your competitors, again, competitive advantage being based on something unique, did you look at what was in the marketplace and seek out your gap and go after, creating something to match that?
Yeah, so not really. We did ultimately end up doing that, but we kind of set up with a blank canvas looking for problems to solve in healthcare, came across the problem of diabetic foot disease, and really said, with a blank canvas, how can we solve this? What would be the best product? Went through a process of developing prototypes, iterations, focus groups with potential customers, really spent a lot of time in clinics understanding the problems they face, to determine what product should be built. And then that kind of led us to the product that we currently have. Only then really did we say, well, look, how is this better than what's already out there? We kind of naturally, developed a product that we knew the market needed, and I think that's probably a good approach rather than kind of trying to just find one step better than an existing product. Yeah.
Okay. So Kerrill, on MEG, your competitive advantage, can you just describe what you do and where your specific place in the market is?
We have a quality management system that's used in hospitals to try and improve quality and patient safety. Very similar to Chris here. I had a software company that built tech for other people for several years, and I went into healthcare looking to solve problems. There are a lot of problems in healthcare to solve that don't have products out there already. So very similar process, but instead of building a physical product, we're building a software product. So it's mobile tech, cloud tech, and it's about simplifying frontline care worker processes using mobile and cloud tech. So very similar story to Chris there around going in, looking for problems, working with clinicians, building solutions. I think some of the advantage we have is that I had a tech team in-house. We own our own tech stack. From the very start, we were able to localize. We had it on a scalable cloud servers. So the very core thing if you're building software is making sure the tech is right. You've got it in-house from the start. Another key thing, advantage we have is Dublin is full of people from lots of different countries. So we have staff from 18 different countries. We've got people from all over South America, the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, and that's allowed us to introduce our product into other markets. So we would work with lots of hospitals in Ireland and the UK for the first 4 years. And we bootstrapped hard. So like we did it all off our own funding for the first 4 years. And as soon as we proved that traction, we had a team that had tons of contacts in other countries. So we were able to scale it out into, we've got customers in the Middle East, South America. Because the tech stack was built to localize from the start, it was very easy to add new languages. So like it works in Arabic, it works in Spanish, French, other languages as well. So it's just having that sort of, from the very outset, have the vision of scalability and internationalization and team as well, hiring people from lots of different places to help you on that journey.
Yeah, and I like the fact, we'll come back to the international startup market, because I think the fact that you'd said to me before, your definite approach, your vision is the global, but you're kind of developing and growing locally with those individual kind of on-the-ground teams, which sounds really, much more achievable. Just coming to you, Catriona, so I know you're an expert in policy and regulations. Someone comes with an idea and they think they're going to invent something new or bring something to market. You're there as the kind of advisor on policy. Can you talk to us about some examples that you've had to... Pass the mic. Just where you've had to advise in that, and is it always so easy just to enter in with competitive advantage and just set up, or are there sometimes obstacles?
Yeah, I can speak a lot about that because I've advised companies, for example, in the micromobility sector. So we know that in Ireland, for example, scooters, kick scooters aren't yet legal to be ridden on the roads. So I've worked with companies for several years who also wanted to expand in that area. And there was a little bit of friction, let's say, at the beginning in the early years, where some of these companies would just deploy their vehicles and then get in trouble with local governments and wonder why that happened, and then what to do, right? Because these companies, especially small startups, aren't thinking of, hey, I'm going to spend loads of money on having a lobbyist, or even PR. They're thinking about unit economics, growth. They're not so much thinking about, okay, what do we need to actually comply? So that's what I try and do, is to help companies really understand what's going on in the different legislations in different cities, so that can help them then have a competitive advantage and help them expand in a sustainable way that they can maintain.
And I'm assuming Bluedrop and MEG are completely regulatory, proficient. Did you guys have to get through a lot of red tape in the early days in terms of setting up, because it's medtech?
Yeah, well, we're still going through that red tape. It's still a major thing. So particularly for medical device, obviously, there's a huge amount of regulations. You have to demonstrate safety. But then when you're looking at a technology like ours, which is remote patient monitoring, kind of telemedicine, digital health, it's quite a new field. So there's even in that area, there's not clear guidelines about how technologies like that are paid for, or how they're regulated, and how can kind of individual health systems adopt them. So there's a lot of red tape, and it is a big challenge. But I suppose one of the kind of positives about it is if you can crack that, if you can find the pathway through, that's actually it's a bit of a moat for competitors. It's not trivial to get adopted.
Yeah, it's like a barrier to entry for the competition. So if you can get over that. And what about MEG in terms of?
So our product is actually a governance, regulation, and compliance product. So hospitals would use our product to help them get accreditation with different standards. So in terms of our own standards, we would have it's ISO accredited. So you have to have a lot of process in place. You have to have like a data protection officer on the team. So that's really important for healthcare data. But in terms of actually scaling the product, you need to have experts who understand CQC in the UK, HICWA in Ireland, JCI is an international standard. So you build your product so that it can be configured to different standards globally. So, you do need to have a lot of healthcare people on the team. Half of my staff come from healthcare backgrounds, so they intuitively know the regulations in different countries. So building a product that can be adapted to meet the different regulations is something we addressed early. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously being constrained by regulation and policy, but let's talk about the art of innovation. And I think it's something I'm passionate about. To innovate or die, you need to continuously innovate. So when we talk about sustainable competitive advantage, without that innovation, you can break through into a marketplace with a disruptive technology or disruptive product, but then maintaining that. So would you mind, Chris, just talking to us about what innovation means to you in Bluedrop, how you maintain innovation, and is it something that's a core value of the company?
Yeah, well, absolutely, it's a core value. It's the whole company's been based upon innovation to this point, and it's something that we kind of obviously it's really important that we maintain that. One of the main ways we kind of look to maintain a constant stream of innovation is by really listening to the problems that our potential customers have, the problems that our patients face, the problems that the doctors run into. I think with that kind of knowledge, it's really how we kind of drive innovation in the organization. We do have kind of processes where we constantly evaluate data that we're collecting in the field, looking at ways we can optimize the offering. But absolutely, it's a core value, and yeah, really the whole company founded on this idea that we need to solve a problem in the healthcare system through observation, through identifying the pain points and looking at an easy solution for the patient. Yeah.
But is that kind of an exciting part of the process for you? Finding new, problem-solving challenges.
Yeah,
overcoming them.
That's the best part. But unfortunately, it's still it's a small sliver of the amount of work that you have to do to get something on the market. But no, absolutely, that's what gives you the energy. It's about understanding that there's you've identified this way to improve something, this way to make someone's life better. You get a lot of energy from that, and I think. But then you have to go and work through all the regulations, the testing, the development. But even that's there's joy in that too. But it's yeah.
Kerrill, with MEG, same question. How do you foster that innovation? Is it through talent? Is it through you mentioned having this internationalization approach? So where does the innovation come from?
There's a couple of things. It depends on the stage of your evolution. But like if you're doing early stage development of a product, whether it's software, digital, the same as Chris here, you have to be really tight with your customers. Like, your customers have to be your best friend. You have to hang out with them all the time. Like, I booked a whole load of 6 a.m. flights to London to spend time with guys in St. Thomas Hospital for the first year and a half when I set up the company. I just obsessed about spending time with customers, listening to their, how they use the product, their feedback. Then you bring it back to the tech team, they change the product. It's this iterative loop of constant innovation, but it has to be driven by your customers. They're the ones who are going to give you money. And if you're not solving their problem, they're not going to give you money. That's it, really. So that loop, and finding staff when you're a bootstrap company is hard. It's very expensive to hire good developers and stuff. So we got very cute about hiring people from different backgrounds. Like our product lead was a professional poker player. He didn't have a qualification, so he retrained to be a software developer, so he's amazing. His assistant was working in a butcher, a Mexican lady who was working in a butcher shop, and she's now one of our senior product people. I've got there's a lot of people in Dublin who are not from Europe whose qualifications aren't recognised. So we hired a Turkish doctor who couldn't get work. He was working in a coffee shop. We hired a Chilean theatre nurse. She couldn't get work even though she's a theatre nurse during COVID, which is insane. So she's now one of our kind of onboarding people. There is a load of this people and support around. If you can tap into your networks of people, it really helps to bootstrap, but and scale and innovate.
That's actually, a really good question around culture and then people in your organization. So do you think having diversity and not just having the same type, if you're in medtech, so has that been important, say, for yourself, Chris, in Bluedrop? In terms of if you're looking at your staff and your hires, what do you look for? And are you hiring?
We're always hiring. It's one of the biggest challenges we have. We're always looking for the best, though. I think we definitely have finite amount of budget in that, but we always try and get what we can. It's very difficult, though. And it's actually led us to kind of the same point that Kerrill's making. It's led us to actually having a really broad variety of people in the organization, just because it's so hard to get people. We've had people who've moved over to Ireland to work with us. We've had people who've moved across the country, and from dozens of different nationalities, I say, or up to a dozen. It's been. We always set the bar as quality. That's what we're looking for. But kind of naturally, we've kind of developed a huge amount of diversity within the organization, which has been great. Yeah.
Super. So thanks for handing the mic over to Catriona. So dealing with companies that you do across a wide range of sectors, do they find innovation easy, or when you come up against a regulatory block, how easy is it for them to deal with that, and can you advise them on that?
Yeah, I think there's a struggle between innovation and regulation. Innovation, technology moves so much quicker than the pace of policymakers, which can actually hold a lot of companies back because, it can be the case that something's not legal, so it can't be, put on the market. But then we also have situations like AI, right? Everyone's talking about AI right now, and the EU is actually in this process of doing an AI Act, which will govern AI. But we can see, ChatGPT is already out. People are already using generative AI tools. And now for a regulation to come in and maybe hold back some of those innovations is obviously not going to be very well seen by the sector. So, there is this struggle, and I don't think it's unwillingness from policymakers. I think they really do want to be able to protect, consumer rights, help companies grow in a sustainable way, but at the same time, they need to set the rules somewhere. So we do see that quite a lot, and again, it's just all part of the process of engaging with policymakers. So another thing we see is that often people who are elected officials are really good at some things, but they're not going to be experts in everything. And it's really important that we make sure that all voices are heard, and that they're aware of how innovation is actually really important to the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting point, and I guess it's great that you can help companies with that, and it's important that companies understand the regulations, but then also innovate and continue to push through boundaries and try and lead the way and work maybe with policymakers as well in that instance.
Absolutely, and things like funding. There's a lot of funding out there, but it's not often clear. So that's somewhere where companies often lose out, is not knowing how to apply for the funding or what's available. So that's another area where things can seem really opaque, and it's important to bring more light to the opportunities out there.
Well, just in that, so the topic we're talking about is, again, the art of innovation and building that sustainable competitive advantage in international startup marketplaces. So let's talk about the international startup marketplace. So your companies like Bluedrop MEG, and companies you deal with, Catriona, are looking at Europe, the US. So can you talk to me about the internationalization process and how easy it is? I think, Kerrill, you've touched on how that's been part of your growth strategy. So has it been an easy thing, being a startup and scaling in that way, or any advice that you could offer?
There's something, Ireland is a great country for starting up for one very good reason. Enterprise Ireland have amazing teams of salespeople in offices all over the world. So we bootstrapped for the first few years, and when we did get money, we were like, you get money from Enterprise Ireland, basically, match fund. And they will give you access to all of their sales teams around the world. We got our first customer in Australia from an introduction from Enterprise Ireland, our first customer in Dubai, first customer in South America, and they led to other customers. So if you're a really small startup, local enterprise office will give you grants for hiring people. When you get a bit bigger, start using Enterprise Ireland. There's a lot of networks of funding, and even grant fund you can get if you're in healthcare and stuff. So you have to be relentless about tapping up all of the sources if you are going to bootstrap, right? If you can get investment money, even better, but that can be very difficult if you don't have a track record. And
can I just ask, sorry, if you hadn't have scaled outside of Ireland and failed to internationalize, what would it mean for your business? I mean, I presume it's really integral to the vision and development.
Yeah, listen, we probably have 6, 7, or 8 people. I have 40 people in the team now, and we are hiring, by the way, right? Just in case anyone's interested. But we would just have we'd have a big enough piece of a small pie. But Ireland is such a small country, you really have to look internationally. If you are going to build a product that's scalable or SaaS-based, you have to think internationally from the start, because Ireland's just too small. The UK is a great market for Ireland. It's very easy, it's very accessible. We haven't really targeted the US, and we've kind of followed doors that opened easily. So what I did is we just kind of pushed in lots of places based on the staff we had, the contacts we had, and we followed the easy doors rather than throwing a load of money at a market just to see, will this market be big? We just you have to find play on your wits a little bit, or play on your kind of instincts a lot. Yeah.
Okay, and Chris, same question. So, you know, internationalization, how are you dealing with it? How fundamental is it to you for your growth, and how is it easy?
Yeah, it's so important for us. I think the market in Ireland just wouldn't be big enough to sustain the company, and as well, because we're working in the space again like digital health. It's the infrastructure isn't as well developed as other countries in Ireland. So looking internationally has always been, you know, core to what we have to do, and we've kind of taken a similar approach that we've looked at the easiest routes. And it just so happens that for us, at least initially, it's going to be the US. And really looking at whenever we get doors open, that we kind of follow them. We haven't necessarily just chosen it for the crack. It's really been because we've had some leads that have led us into that market. And so yeah, for us, the US is the kind of core market that we're targeting initially. But the product does have a huge global opportunity as well. It's just each individual country would have its own unique health system, the different regulations, the different ways of paying for healthcare, as I said. So for us, for being just singly focused on the US is where we are right now, and ultimately over time, though, we'll kind of broaden out.
And is that because FDA approval is slightly less arduous than European regulations for your particular medtech?
So the FDA is quite easy for us, and we're a really low-risk device, and it's probably easier than the equivalent in Europe, which is CE mark. But the real reason why we're targeting the US is just because there's a lot more infrastructure in place to adopt digital health technologies that we've seen, particularly in our space. So that's one of the main reasons. Our perception is that it's the easiest place to start this. There's already existing reimbursement codes available. There are similar technologies that are available. There's a huge opportunity in different markets, as I said, but there would just be a bit more early stage development work required. And our goal is to, you know, demonstrate this works in a single market like the US, and once we have that done, it kind of should be a lot more straightforward to show how it will be implemented elsewhere.
You'll be like the U2 of medtech.
That's the goal, yeah, of course.
So Catriona, we have some questions here, but just on that, you know, the regulation and policy, obviously it's massively complicated across sectors and across regions. So how would you advise people, and you know, when they come to you as clients, what's your first steps?
Yeah, I think it's a really important distinction to make is what is EU level and what is national level. And I think it's really important when you're scaling businesses to also make sure that, you know, you have experts on the ground. You know, things that Kerrill has mentioned about scaling up teams. You know, that's all very local legislation on a national level. So it's really important for that expertise to be provided. So that's also something I would do is, you know, say, when another expert is needed. But anything EU level, EU-wide is sort of my bag and what I can advise on. And then per sector, I mean, there's files that come out all the time. So yeah, it's really just kind of having, you know, a finger on the pulse of anything that's upcoming or anything that's already happened. But I think the best time to engage is, you know, when there's opportunity to influence. So the earlier the better.
Okay, so we have some questions. First question. I'm not sure who this is directed to, so we'll just see who wants to take it. What do you think is the best option if you're going up against a large, established market leader where they have a huge amount of consumer trust? That's from Laura. Very good question.
We've done this. We've done this a couple of times in the Middle East where we've beaten the incumbent in tenders. It's really important that your sales team or your marketing team generate like really good relationships with the buyer. Like most buying in healthcare is personality based, so you have to like have people who are quite gregarious or outgoing or very good at forming relationships. And if you can kind of get that in with the client, you can displace a competitor product, you can displace a market incumbent, but you have to spend a lot of time on that relationship.
Okay, sorry, just two more questions. So one, how do you balance between delivering your key product and making sure you haven't missed any diversification or dual use? Interesting. Chris, I can see you thinking.
I'm not sure I got the question.
So you're there focusing on delivering your key product. Can you lose sight of the diversification of finding other uses or innovations around that? I think that's kind of what I'm reading from this. Maybe there's other purposes, or are you relentlessly focused on just one task?
Yeah, I think, well, for us anyway, we would have to be singly focused on the one product. It's obviously very easy to kind of spot different opportunities and want to chase them, but I think they're all logged. They'll be kind of dealt with later unless they kind of fit our core mission, which is the initial product. They're kind of put on the back burner. Yeah.
So don't get distracted.
Yeah.
Okay, last question is actually a really good question. Hang on a second. Where's it gone now? Oh yeah, last one. You've mentioned UK and US market. Do you think UK is a small market and is a better place to start, or do you think that the US market is much bigger and deserves better opportunities and chances?
So it depends on your product, right, is probably one of the main points. But if you're selling into a healthcare system, the healthcare system in the UK is a public healthcare system, as is Ireland. So it's much like for like. It's much easier to sell for us anyway, selling into the UK. It just depends on, like, the US has very different terminology, very different vernacular, very different funding mechanisms, funding routes. So we kind of almost need to re-envision or re-pitch our product to sell in the US. So the UK is much easier. You can get on a plane and be in Liverpool in half an hour. Like, you can be in Glasgow, Leeds. There's a whole ton of business in the UK. So for me, go after that first, depending on your product, of course.
I think, Chris, I know we're out of time, but I think, Chris, you'd probably agree you're just going after the US.
I don't know. I think wherever the easiest opportunity is, and if the UK works, it's still a huge market. It's so close. There's a lot of advantages. I think we definitely weighted up a lot, and just didn't kind of work for us initially. But it's every product's going to be different, right? Every business is going to have a different.
Okay, super. Okay, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank my panel members, Kerrill, Chris, and Catriona. And just on behalf of myself and Furthr, thank you for coming and listening today. If you want to get in touch with anyone on the panel and myself, and also in touch with furthr.ie, and also you can email us at hello@furthr.ie. And again, as I said, we're passionate about helping founders connect, network, scale up, and for funding. So thank you everyone for listening, and thank you to the panel.